Welcome to the Pinkbike podcast. We've got another exciting show after a weekend of racing, new products, all kinds of things to talk about. I'm here with Matt Beer, Dario DiGiulio. I'm Mike Kasmer, and we have producer Eric in the background, making sure things work medium okay. Yeah. Did you guys watch the racing this weekend?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the highlights.
Yeah.
I ended up I watched the finals for men's and women's and then went back and watched everything because it was so exciting.
Yeah. And I really like the new Q2 format. Like
Me too.
It's worth watching qualifiers now because things happen there. You wonder why someone got a certain rank for the finals or didn't make finals, and you go back and watch. It's like,
yeah, I started watching finals and then remembered that I hadn't seen Q2, and so I went back and watched some chunks of that. But yeah, it's maybe even more exciting than finals. Depending on.
Kind of. People say that, but I don't believe that's true. Because at the finals, you know who wins. Like,
yeah.
Q2,
but I don't know. The Q2 is just it's tense.
Yeah,
I think that's how it
builds.
Because finals, it's a bit more, you just lay it out there. But Q2, it's this weird, it's a race run, but you can't crash. You got to, keep it together. I mean, obviously you can't crash in finals either. I don't know. It's all great.
No, it was great.
I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah. And speaking of crashes, there were a lot of crashes, especially the juniors.
Brutal.
Asa smoked a tree, I think, so hard. I think that's what he hit.
He watched the front and just he baseball slid, but
did he? It looked like I watched his GoPro. I didn't see the other side of it, but yeah, he made a good noise, but he got up and still got fifth place.
A huge crash to get into fifth, and he'd be in top 20 elite men with a crash, which is actually insane.
The speeds at the top section those people are carrying, it's so scary. I'm not very good at wide open stuff like that is not what I consider my strong suit, and not hitting your brakes at that pace is frightening.
Well, and you see too,
windy.
I forget, Josh Carlson kept calling them ghoulies, but the loose rocks that people were getting taken out by.
Oh yeah.
Finn got taken out by one within the first 5 corners. There's just little death traps everywhere.
Yeah, was it Ronan that blew off the track, and then somebody else blew off the track or hit a corner hard and crashed, and then their rear wheel kicked out a huge boulder too? It was
maybe it was Benoit. There was a few huge ones that ended up. I think they paused racing to move new boulders. But
was it Charlie Hatton that was in the Shimano sign? They kind of flipped over the side of the berm and just in the. Oh man! And there was another guy that came off. He basically was sideways, full 90 degrees in the air, kind of recovered, and blew through all the course markers. And just the saves or near saves was wild.
It was insane. Yeah. I mean, we should talk about the successes too. Jackson was perfect. That was an insane run.
Do you think that the speed suit that he's wearing is so ugly? I don't care that it's a speed suit, but the cut of it has black, the black outline on the back makes it look like he has
speed suit. Yeah.
He's rocking some Shakira hips. It's not cool. I don't understand.
It's a very odd choice to execute. They know what those look like before they make them.
Right.
And to give the little boy a
He looks like a
hourglass figure is very odd to me.
A little
the
villain.
Colors are just I don't remind me of I don't know, some sort of comic villain.
Yeah, a little bit.
A teeny tiny angry superhero.
But I mean, boy, was
fast.
He ripping.
Yeah.
It was sick.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the speed suits at all. I just think that the color scheme makes it look worse than it needs to be. But yeah, he was going quick. Also, Nathan, was it Pontvion?
Pontevier,
I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce his last name, but his run was so good. He had a whip over
a loose as fuck.
He was breaking berms as he was coming, just ripping them apart. It looked like a bike park shred it kind of run, but it was so good, and he got fourth.
Yeah, it was crazy to see the runs where you could like Gwyn blew up a corner and then it was never the same for the rest of the race. It was definitely watching the track deteriorate through the race was unusual, I think.
Yeah.
It's rare that it's disintegrating that quickly, but
And
pretty insane. A lot of interesting tech stuff for how hot and steep it is too. Opposite of Poland where everyone was trying to protect their brakes from water. I think we saw people running water drippers to cool their brakes.
I know, I've never seen that before. I know it's existed, but I don't think I've ever seen
it was the Aeon Racing crew was running it on Henry Kerr's bike.
That's it.
And he had the most heinous
his crash. Was so brutal.
So lucky that he's okay. But I think Phil Atwell ran a dripper at one point in the past, but I don't know what else we're going to call these.
Yeah. It's so much to keep track of now. I feel like it's getting like it actually is Formula One style, where if you hopped on their bikes, you wouldn't be able to ride it because you don't know what all the buttons do. You push the wrong button and water starts spraying everywhere. Push another one, your suspension's locked out.
You could actually call this a brake dampener.
Oh, there we go. It's
a real dampener.
It's actually a dampener. Yeah. I think that the story of the race, though, is like riding your bike really well is still the best move. Because I don't think like electronics played a huge role in the speedway. It was more about like tucking and not touching your brakes.
Yeah.
And then, the steeps were not decided by who ran a brake dripper. It was just manage your speed. And obviously Jackson weighs like 12 and a half pounds. So that helps. But like, you know.
But like just such good riding. And Gracie too, 2 Canadians. Like it's really cool to see the Canadian. We've always been talking about how Canadians eventually were going to become kind of up on the World Cup after Stevie Smith. And it feels like it's been taking a little bit. Always Jackson was kind of on the radar. But
Finn and Jackson have been like quite strong, but not dominant necessarily.
But now there's like another, I've been into someone else up there. So
yeah,
I mean, there's never been 2 World Cup Canadians.
No.
And this was the first double North American since like 99 or whatever. You can go back to Ed's article for all that, but
that was really cool.
It was
I had Jackson and Gracie on my fantasy team for the first round, and it's just not a roll of the dice, but like anything can happen, I guess. Especially with the weather thrown in there. So the different formats the new format keeps it exciting too. And
I mean,
even the
my
juniors
fantasy team didn't qualify. Like,
I'm number 1 for Pinkbike fantasy for this weekend.
Oh,
I won.
Look at you!
Because I had Gracie, and I had Ocean, but I think it was Gracie and Valley that I just had those 2. But yeah, the juniors, the speeds of the juniors, it's crazy too. I don't know. Everyone knows how to go so fast now. I'm not sure what
I'm pretty sure Bodie Burke put some holes in that track. Like, I was watching his run. I watched it a couple times, and I literally thought he was going to like roll a tire off the rim like Ronan did, but like in a corner or like bend a bar or a wheel. Like I don't know how he held on.
There was
G-forces so hard.
And
also like not getting out of shape. Like he just like took it. It was insane.
So he's just moving the track to meet. Like he just changes the track ahead of him. He's like driving a snowplow somehow. Yeah, that was cool.
Super cool.
Oh, I also liked the rider that had the mechanical in the start hut, and they tried to fix it with the umbrella. They're just like banging on the chainring with an umbrella. Was a really
Henry
nice...
Kiefer.
Yeah,
that was interesting. I don't know whatever shook out with him getting disqualified or not.
Well, they counted because he basically had a false start. He triggered the beam, so they started his run from when the beam was triggered.
Okay,
and then so his run was like 7 minutes long.
That feels fair, honestly. Weird.
Race.
I mean, his mechanic is going to be sleepless for a week, but that's
like
tough.
His chainring was bent or something because it was definitely like just skipping.
Do you think so? I had a friend got a new bike. They started riding, and they're like, "My bike's louder after a couple of runs." I was like, "Oh, well, it could be because the chain, the wax kind of wore off." And I was like, "Oh, this is why lots of racers like to put new chains on for either the start of a race or a race run." But I feel like it adds an element of uncertainty.
I agree.
To your bike setup. It's like, why would you put a new chain on for a race run? And then you see so many broken chains or mechanicals in start huts.
Yeah.
And it's like the first pedal stroke or two, like I'm sure the mechanics take these bikes for a good sprint out of the paddock, but like,
but not all,
is that what it is? Is that what happened, or did it just derail in the start hut?
It almost looked like, it was hard to tell if it was an actual chainring being bent. Like I wonder if he smoked a rock or something at some point and just a tooth was, because when he was pedaling, you could see it was hooking up on one of the teeth, which could be a stiff link, but it also could have been a bent, like just a bent chainring, lower chainring tooth.
Yeah.
But I wonder.
Part of it too is that bike has an idler, and like clocking the chainring relative to that is difficult. So they had a hard time getting it into the right phase.
Oh, so was the idler also?
I think it's narrow wide, like idler and chainring. Plus, there's a roller.
Okay.
Do they get a practice run before finals run? Do they get one practice run?
Yeah, usually.
I mean, I guess that'd be kind of.
I think a lot of people like. There were a lot of crashes and stuff in the practice, so it's possible that like red flags and all that kind of delayed how much practice people were able to get. the logistics side of it is always a bit of a mystery, especially looking at from the outside, not on course. But yeah, I mean, they did their best. There were definitely some messy moments in the race. Like we saw Chris Hauser catch up to Juan Favelas.
Oh yeah, he was so mad, which I don't blame him. Like,
dude, I would be fucking pissed.
I mean, you're Q2, so luckily he did qualify, but he was on the bubble, so he could have potentially not qualified. And
and there being like dozens of officials down the track who did nothing is a little lame. But
gotta get the blue flags out now for the lappers.
Yeah.
And then,
but it works out. What else?
I also noticed, there were a lot of people that came off the track. It seemed maybe, I don't know what it was about this race in particular, the speed, the camber, but do you think there's something to not having tape? Or do you think people just would have blown through tape if there was on this track?
I think people would have blown. It's like the braking points looked so tight on this. I think if people just like overcooked one section, they'd suddenly be going way faster than they were used to. That was a lot of that like stall wall gap. The issues people were having there was like there was a tailwind in the race, and so they were overshooting or like scrubbing it for the very first time, and so they would overshoot that next section. But
like Nina scrubbed and then went off.
It might make it easier. You don't have to keep fixing the course as much, because if people go out between the little pylons, then you don't have to go and rejoin some split tape, because I think there would have been a lot of just tape tangled up and everything for the it's kind of goes both ways. But then I saw in the enduro race they did use course tape for a lot of it, which is kind of funny. I don't understand how it all works, but we should talk.
I think it's probably just like the risk of people ducking tape is higher in enduro, just because it's less publicized and like there are more stages.
Enduro races are sneaky. There haven't been any like sneaky gate lately in enduro, but there are some people that go different ways than you would think they would go.
Course doping.
It's happening in DH as well, but
it's pretty visible though. I guess that one is but that got called out. But I feel like in years past there were definitely some years of enduro. Hopefully it's better now, but where people just straight line things that you would never think of straight lining. But we talked briefly about the enduro. It felt like it gets so overshadowed when it's a DH weekend, because DH is, you can watch it. It's so much more exciting, even though it is the enduro courses now seem pretty cool. And we saw Dan Booker win again on flat pedals on a Bronson. So pretty sweet. He did a toboggan over like the second to last jump. Apparently. I didn't see any footage of it, but Eddie called it out and said he did a toboggan, which probably the first EWS winner to do a toboggan before finishing, maybe. I think. I don't know, which is awesome. So props to him for winning.
Flat pedals. So crazy.
I think same was I'm blanking on his name right now. Commensal rider, French guy.
Alex Rudeau.
Alex Rudeau was on the podium as well. So 2 flats place, again.
So flats are doing it. It's hard.
I mean, it's a really steep course. Looks like more speed management than sprinting relative to some of the others. So it's kind of funny. I mean, the first 2 rounds did feel a bit like the UCI was sticking to their like smaller bikes are going to be the name of the game guns here. But this race is like fully back to bring the longest travel bike you can. It'll be interesting. I guess the next one coming up, by the time you're listening to this, we've got Leo Gang happening tomorrow, basically. So more enduro, XC, and downhill. We're in the heart of the season. Pretty good. So enjoy the coverage on that. But before we run the risk of making this podcast too out of date, we should talk about some other things that happened this week. Some new things.
XTR
is here.
After probably the most leaked product group in recent memory, at least the most number of images floating around for the longest amount of time.
I would say like product images, not just on a racer's bike.
We never actually saw him on a racer's bike.
No, Jackson's been running the brakes, but
I mean the
drivetrain has pretty much not been present.
It wasn't allowed. They weren't, from what I was told, they weren't on racers' bikes. They knew it existed, but they weren't allowed to use it until now that it exists. So,
but the distributors were allowed to take phone pictures and put them on every forum on the internet.
Exactly.
It's here. Mike, you and I have been riding it since January. Matt, you've got the brakes, right?
Been on the brakes for a couple months.
It's wireless and it's XTR. I don't know, it's here. I feel like to some degree the like super leak is kind of a bummer because it takes away some of the excitement of like a big new thing arriving. It's been 8 or 7 years since XTR was last updated, which is crazy to think because it feels like it was only a couple of years ago. But yeah, they went wireless. I'd say the drivetrain isn't drastically different aside from the fact that there isn't a cable. But brakes are completely redone. There's a lot of little details in the whole group set, but I don't know. What are your like?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost anticlimactic because it's a drivetrain. People love to lose their minds about drivetrain, but at the end of the day, as long as it shifts and does what it's supposed to, I don't actually mind that much. But this stuff does shift super well. People that like the Shimano shifting and the shifting speed, we talk about it. If you watch the video that Dairo and I made, the speed difference between the new Shimano and the Axis transmission is dramatic. You can clearly see, even in the stand, how one is way faster than the other. So people that complained about the shift speed of transmission, they'll find a lot to like with the XTR stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the biggest differentiator. And it doesn't use a direct mount. It just uses a standard derailleur hanger. So some people will like that, even though these days most bikes have a UDH anyway. So it kind of doesn't really matter, but that's something that it does.
Yeah. I would say speed is like the main value add for the Shimano stuff. And then for me, I do think transmission shifts significantly better under load, but that's kind of where Link Glide fills some of the space. You know, if you're running it on an e-bike, you'd probably go with that anyway. So
yeah, and I feel like I don't shift under load. As I wonder if it depends on when you were born. You know, like I learned on drivetrains where you're not really supposed to shift under load, and I do it obviously, and especially for when company comes out with a drivetrain says you can shift under load, I do.
Yeah,
but I think my
that's kind of the point.
Yeah, but my natural shifting style is to not just be like mashing and shifting at the same time.
I mean, even with transmission stuff, I still have that like gut instinct of I'm going to break a chain, but it's nice to be able to do that in a pinch. I think the shifting quality is identical to the cable stuff because it's the same chaining cassette. So yeah, that's worth keeping in mind. In a way, the more like significant update is actually the brakes because they don't wander anymore, which is cool.
They attribute some of that to the different mineral oil that they're using now, right? Mm-hmm. But you can't use that mineral supposedly in the old brakes, correct?
Yeah, basically, I think if you were to run it in the old brakes, it would be fine for a bit, and then your seals would swell and they would die. So I would not run the low VI mineral oil in the old brakes. If you choose to, that's up to you. Because too bad they
couldn't have made a backwards fix where they say, hey, these are new brakes, these are great, but also we fixed the brakes you already have that people have been complaining about for years and years. Yeah. But
I think the part of it is they did change the caliper seals in the new brakes, and like the rebound that those have helps the whole system work better. I would say like all Shimano brakes, they are very sensitive to a bleed. Like you have to get a perfect bleed for them to work well. And they're pretty easy to bleed, luckily, but you might have to do it more often than with other systems. So,
and power-wise, I just rode them a couple of rides, but they felt pretty similar to the ones before.
Yeah,
is that
they're like marginally stronger? What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I would say a bit more natural to use, and just where that power kind of kicks in, it's a little bit more linear. The power, I would say, is still really good, still really high. Like we've seen some downhill racers use them.
Yeah, Jackson
bikes.
Just won.
Yeah,
on XTRs. Those are not like some fancy Saint version as far as I can tell. They look like stock XTR brakes.
Good power, good heat dissipation, no issues there whatsoever. Still a very Shimano-esque feeling lever.
For sure.
It's a little bit straighter. The pivot point has moved in closer to the bar, so I almost said in my little blurb that it can feel a bit SRAM-ish. Like there may be less Shimano than they have been in the past, but they still have that sort of double hinged cam, the servo wave thing. So there is that like ramp up. It's just smoother, more linear overall.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree. Like the most apparent thing immediately is the like kind of up flare to the levers. You kind of have to change the way that you set the angle of them just to accommodate, but once that's set, you don't really notice it. And then I'd say the like the break-in feel, like not touching the lever to pulling, it still has a bit of a nose to it, like all Shimano brakes tend to. It's like you pull through a little thing and then it's super light, but you do have to like break that edge first. So the feel is quite similar. Like they did a lot of work to make them feel the same, despite being like completely different architecturally to the previous version. But yeah, they work well. The pads don't rattle. That's great.
Yeah, that's good. That's like a while too. Yeah, I mean, it is nice. It's more like refinements than anything else, but I think that's good that,
yeah.
And as far as power goes, I think there's definitely room for brakes that aren't Maven strong. You know, we're seeing SRAM apparently phasing out codes, and so it kind of leaves a gap in that lineup for, you know, trail bikes. What brakes do you put on?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know Dario put Mavens on, but for some people, Mavens are still going to be too much. So I think that maybe potential that Shimano can get a little bit of their spec back. But I'm really curious overall for the drivetrain and the brakes where they show up. You know,
Me too.
Like, are they going to gain that market share, or is SRAM kind of too far ahead already with, you know, their range?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're recording this Monday, so we don't even know what bikes are getting announced Thursday or Wednesday with the drivetrain. So, you know, there are a few brands that we know of, but not specific models necessarily.
Yeah.
Especially how you spoke to the, you know, the e-bike side of it, where, you know, you said maybe the transmission stuff is designed specifically to shift under load, and you just mash through that. And yes, the Link Glide stuff does do that, but this is maybe a bit different.
Yeah, I think that XTR is like, it's kind of always been the like high end race group. So I think that is still the case here. It's like elegant and light and requires attention to make sure it's set up beautifully. And that's not what e-bikes are. Like, they are brute force machines, and they will destroy things like without caring. So like Shimano has the like XTDI2 stuff that's Link Glide, and it wires right into a motor or into a battery. So I think that's probably still going to be what people choose to run if you're speccing an e-bike. But
yeah, probably.
Eric has a question.
I was just curious, just because you mentioned the XTDI2, is this new XT wireless stuff DI2 in the same way of having that like cable to an external battery, or is it a self-contained battery like the SRAM transmission stuff now?
This is self-contained. Sorry. Yeah. So this is like fully Bluetooth wireless.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's kind of confusing because they continue to use the DI2 nomenclature, but like historically and still some DI2 is a wire connection. This is just a battery in your shifter, battery in your derailleur, you know, fully remote actuated. So yeah.
And then on the electronic side a bit more, I've never used the new XTR wireless stuff. What's the noise like for the servo and the motor? Is it
very similar to the SRAM stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a different pitch, but similar. You kind of still hear the
zoop zoop.
Like,
yeah. I think it's like same volume, just different pitch. And then it doesn't like scream when you hit it in quite the same way. Like if you do run it into a root or something, it'll like zoop back into place, but it's a little less of a screech.
Less zoopy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess before we wrap up the XTR talk, that's the main gripe that we end up having is the chain slap is a little bit louder, even than the previous clutch style cable actuated drivetrains they had, because they don't really use a clutch on this. They use a dual spring system for your pulley. So it kind of can get pulled forward, and when it snaps back, you get a decent amount of noise on some bikes. That was kind of our main thing that we weren't.
And like, I understand the concession there in terms of getting rid of a clutch mostly it's to make the form factor of the derailleur smaller. Like the knuckle that the cage pivots around is really slim, especially relative to like old XTR or transmission. But yeah, the downside is you have a lot more chain slap. So,
and I guess it's one less thing to maintain theoretically. The old
which to me is actually huge.
Yeah, the old clutches could kind of get crusty, and you had to re-grease them and do all that. So this one should be lower maintenance, but you still have batteries and a motor and stuff in there, so that could potentially be more maintenance. At least you got to charge your battery sometimes too.
But very little. Like I would say that the battery life is impressive on the XTR stuff. It's a slightly
obviously it's a different size battery than SRAM Axis or even than the battery that you use in the Fox dropper post. So if
it is a third battery
size, why would they get along and just make one that works? Like they should always run on AA batteries or something.
I know.
Or not batteries.
You just stick a big D battery into each of them.
That'd be cool. Speaking of batteries, we should probably touch briefly on the new Yeti e-bike that came out. I know that sometimes people gripe when we talk about e-bikes, but this e-bike's actually pretty cool. The Yeti MTE.
Listen up, guys. This one's actually pretty cool.
I mean,
No, it is. You've been stoked on it.
Talk about too.
You've been excited about this in a way that I think you haven't been other e-bikes.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like just another e-bike. Kind of similar to when you reviewed the Trek / Plus last year, which also used a TQ motor. There's something about this style of bike. So this one, Yeti's new e-bike, uses their Sixfinity suspension layout, the one that they used on their bigger full power e-bike already, but it has 145 mils of travel, 164, kind of their trail all mountain lighter weight e-bike. And it uses TQ's new motor, which is the HPR 60. 60 means 60 Newton meters of torque. So a little bit more powerful than the motor before. And you can get it with a 200 something watt hour battery or a 580 watt battery. And so Jessie May tested it with a smaller battery. She's a smaller rider, and her bike weighed in at, I think, 38 pounds, which is pretty wild. Yeah. So I was a small bike with small battery, but 38 pounds is very light.
How much does 200-ish watt hour battery get you, though?
I think she was able to get like 3,000 feet of vert or so. So
damn.
I think I need to look at her numbers, but like decent. Again, rider weight is going to matter because she only weighs 100 and, I don't know, low 120s, I think. But but even on mine, like mine had the bigger battery, 580 watts, and weighed 44 pounds, which I think that's the same as your Frameworks has been at times, Dario. And so at that weight, I was able to get like upwards of 6,000 vert with it in full power. And full power isn't like, it doesn't chuck you up the hill like you would get on a full power e-bike like the new Levo or any of those DJI things, but I don't think that's the point. It's kind of it's like a bike that it almost feels like it wants you to go ride single track adventures rather than just going to a shuttle zone and going up as fast as you can and down as fast as you can. Like it just makes normal rides longer, if that makes sense. You just out, it's like an adventure bike, and the suspension feels insane. Like, so probably one of the best suspension platform feels that I've had in a long time. And I really just want them to make this on a regular bike because I think that'd be good. It just has, it's, 145 doesn't seem like a ton of travel, but I definitely rode some burlier moves and it was great. And you can run this bike mixed wheel or 29 only, or not 29 only, but dual 29.
It's interesting to see like a few brands now use their e-bike as like a foil for introducing suspension platforms that are different than what they're known for.
Yeah.
Like
we had to do this
and Yeti most notably. But
is there a reason why Yeti hasn't introduced that to a non e-bike, you think? Is it?
I think the Switch Infinity thing is like too much their IP, it's like,
I wonder if the weight, it might weigh a little bit more, but based on the weight of this bike, it doesn't seem like it can weigh that much more, like because you do have the other link, but still, it seems like there's a way to make it.
The Switch Infinity unit is not light. Like it's a kind of a little brick down there, but
and this seems like it'd be a little bit less maintenance than the Switch Infinity. Like those Kashima rods can wear out on on those bikes. So this one doesn't have Kashima rods, but in any case, very expensive bike. I think I need to look at the price. It was like $12,000 or $14,000. It's so expensive, but the general ride feel is excellent, and it's pretty cool to see that space, like what's happening with that kind of bike. I feel like if you erased all e-bikes from the earth, which some people would be happy about, but then you just introduced this style of e-bike, I feel like it'd be a totally different conversation.
I agree.
The world would be a different place. Like people might be like, oh, I'd have that as either as your one bike or your kind of bonus bike, I
think the TQ bikes are like more authentically the augmentation that e-bikes were sold as initially. It's like, it feels like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
It is easier, but it's not like towing the line of motorcycle at all.
Just the ride experience is so much more natural. You just kind of forget, like in my head, I was thinking this is the cheesy marketing line that I thought of is like, this is the bike that actually turns mountains into molehills. It just like rounds them out. Like you still feel the hill, but it's way less. So if there's a big summit you need to get to, you're like, I'll just do that. So it's interesting, but we can move on. We'll keep this brief. This will be a shorter e-bike chat than usual, but check out the review. There's a video and it is a really cool thing. And the new motor is super quiet. Like this is one, if you come up behind people, they don't know you're on an e-bike and you don't get the looks of shame, which is nice because that happens.
Yeah.
And then, there's a new DaVinci Troy Carbon that came out this week too. That's we tested that, the aluminum version, the made in Canada aluminum version, last year's fall field test up in Whistler. And so they took that one and then they made it overseas in plastic carbon. So,
and it's like almost exactly the same, but kind of different.
Yeah.
Right?
There's a couple like small tweaks. The chainstays actually end up being a little shorter, like by 5 mils. The seat angle is actually a little steeper. They're just really subtle things. If you rode one and then the other, their overall ride feels almost identical. it looks cool. I really do like the look of it. Somehow in carbon,
nice
it looks like even better, really low top tube. And it's got the things you'd want, it's got in-frame storage and threaded bottom bracket and kind of fully guided internal cable routing. So pretty cool. It's a, 150 mil bike. I do think feels to me almost like they first developed it as a 29er and then they decided that mixed wheels were popular. So that's how the only way you can get this is with mixed wheels, but it does have a flip chip. And if you run 29-inch wheels, you can have a high and low setting for your 29-inch wheel setup. But with the mixed wheels, it just has one setting, just the high setting is the only way that mixed wheels really work. If you
Yeah, it seems to be the case for a few brands that have maybe more constraining suspension designs with the split pivot, that concentric pivot axle. Like the pivot cycles, a lot of their bikes do the same thing. They have 2 modes for 29 and then 1 for 27 rear wheels. And so, it's not the first time I've seen this, but it does kind of put a cap on how many adjustments you can make to the bike.
And plus the fact that you can't buy it with 2 29-inch wheels is kind of funny to me. Like they only spec a mixed wheel, which is fine. Like I like mixed wheel bikes, but yesterday I rode it with 2 29-inch wheels just to see. And I was like, oh, this is actually really good. It rides pretty nice in that setting. Almost feels like similar to a high tower, just get a little bit more plowability, a little better rollover on the climbs and descents. If I was going to turn this into some sort of enduro race type thing, I could see doing dual 29er. Be pretty fun. So you can check out the first ride on the homepage. And it exists. Good build kits, comes with double down tires on one of them, like front and rear, which you don't see that often anymore, which is it's really like out of the box, pretty ready. It has a Vivid air shock with a Lyric, which is kind of a unique combo. I don't know if they needed to do that, but I do think there is some perception of the Vivid.
It's like that optic that came out last year is kind of that way.
Yeah, like I think it would have been fine with the Super Deluxe. And I think the step down, like the basic model, not basic, it's still kind of pricey, but it still has cable actuated drivetrain and then the Super Deluxe shock and XL Plus tires. So you kind of have 2 different, you've got like your burly build with wireless and then your cable actuated build. It's a little bit lighter.
Do they have an XTR spec on it?
No, just 2 models for now.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that kind of wraps up our news portion. Anything else we need to talk about this week? Let's see.
I might as well, I have a review coming out either yesterday or tomorrow on the XTR wheel set.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of I think Shimano isn't really known for their wheels. They've always made hubs and occasionally, depending on the model year, they'll make rims to go with those. And
they usually like a couple years out of date by the time the rims come out. They're usually a little bit narrow and a little bit.
These are sick. This is they hit the nail on the head with this one.
Are they carbon or aluminum?
They are carbon rims, steel spokes to a cartridge bearing hub, which is the first for them. It's like a ratchet style hub, but it's really low drag because it's super complicated. I'm not going to get into it because you need to look at it to understand it, but it's kind of like a version of that silence hub they were working on like a decade back, and it actually works. So they are just fuss-free wheels. They're pretty light, like 1,700 grams for the set. And I've been riding them for months and they've had no issues. So
cool. Can you get them with an XD driver?
I doubt it, but maybe. I would be pretty surprised.
Yeah.
So for the Shimano fans out there, it's a pretty cool option. I think the only downside is they don't come with a lifetime warranty. I don't know what the warranty is specifically, but the price isn't drastically high. So I think as a result, that's the offset.
Yeah. How much are they? Do you know?
I don't remember off the top of my head. They're like
less than $5,000 and more than $1,000.
They are.
Yeah, no ball bearing, or sorry, no loose ball bearing hubs and cartridge bearing style. That's a new thing for them.
Yeah,
right?
a huge departure for them. They're $1,700 US.
Well, they should have a lifetime warranty for that price, I would say.
I would
reserves
agree.
Cost, but I feel like they might have had a wheel set or 2 that did use cartridge bearings in the past.
Really?
Probably.
Yeah,
I think they've always been cup and cone.
I think somewhere in there. I don't know where though, because they've done, like you were saying, their wheel lineup is almost feels like sometimes an afterthought or just doesn't get the press. So, but I mean, historically, especially with XTR, it's been cup and cone since the dawn of time because it's and they used to. I mean, their thing was that you could get a more precise, smoother rolling system, and longevity is supposed to be improved. But
the sealing on these is quite good, so I think they're still sticking to that. But it's just an easier user experience. The other interesting thing, I haven't ridden these, but they have an XC wheel set that uses titanium spokes and 24 of them, I think. So they're very minimalist, lightweight XC wheels, but
nice.
No mileage on those to report.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, busy week. So check out all the tech, and then in the future, this stuff will start showing up on bikes. So I'm really curious to see what general consumers' reception is to all that stuff too. Just kind of see how it fares out in the real world.
Yeah, I'm curious. There's like, they're doing their best to try to get aftermarket, I think, as well. They have those like kind of hop up kits that you can get. It's just a derailleur and a shifter, which to me is kind of just what buying things is. I don't know why it's its own like category for them, but like, yes, you can buy the like new wireless stuff and just plug it into an old drivetrain,
which is cool. You don't need a whole new cassette like you would a transmission. So that's pretty neat. That. Cool. Well, should we get in some reader questions?
Yeah.
Hi, Pinkbike. I was wondering, when you guys talk about having a low or a high stack height on a bike, why this matters? Can you not just adjust it with a stem height or bar bend? Any insight would be great. Thanks. You guys do an awesome job. Okay, bye.
How about you want to take this one, Matt?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, a bike has a set stack, reach. All the other geometries are somewhat fixed. Say it has no adjustment. So if you do bring your stem height up or your bar height up via a higher rise bar, it's going to detract from the reach. So yes, you will be standing taller on the bike, but the horizontal distance you're stretched out over the bike decreases. So it is best to look for a bike that kind of fits you from the get-go rather than trying to work backwards and cheat that in one way or another. Finding that perfect number or perfect balance from the beginning is a challenge for everybody, though. So it takes a bit of trial and error and asking some experts of, how you fit on a bike to find the right one for you.
Yeah.
And there's only so high up you can go on the steer tube. If you're only so high you can put your stem or your bars before it starts kind of affecting other things, like you said. So I don't think there's one magic number for stack. It just really kind of depends on the bike and the purpose and all that. Like I think reach and top tube length are really beneficial to look at for general sizing, but stack does determine kind of like you're saying, that kind of stood up position. A taller stack gets you kind of more upright. And I prefer a tall stack these days. I think, Dario, you're probably in the same boat, right? How about you, Matt?
I'm kind of in the middle, and it depends on what style of bike I'm riding. I would say more gravity-oriented bikes, I'd trend to a higher stack for my size. And then cross-country side, obviously if you look at what pros are riding, they're going with like negative rise stems and even drop bars at times, which is kind of crazy. But it just depends on what you're looking to execute on. If you're, trying to maximize comfort or performance, and there's always going to be ups and downs to both of those.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think for XC bikes, they're trying to get the weight over the front wheel. They're spending, the races still are won on the climbs, even though they've gotten more technical on the descents. They're kind of more in that, semi-aero, hunched over, closer to a road bike position. But yeah, I do it is be interesting to see how that changes too, because they feel so much more comfortable with a taller front end. But I get that might not be the way to win a race at the World Cup level. But for the general,
they're faster too. I think they are like. So you look at like, for instance, like two extremes, like you have the new Epic, which has like a medium stack height in the scheme of XC bikes. And then something like, I think they're just like two bikes that I've tested recently, so they're in my head, but like the Arc 8 Evolve FS, which is another World Cup bike, has a super low stack height, like as low as possible, essentially. And, obviously the athletes that are on the bikes matter more than the bikes themselves. But I think like, it's a testament to the fact that both do work on the World Cup stage. It's just a matter of preference. Like, Scott has like normal-ish stack heights, but then all of their athletes run super dropped bars. I think XC is kind of a weird foil for it. I'd almost look at Enduro as like more of a representative block of riders for like, what most Pinkbike riders are doing with their bikes. But I just think like the most important thing is, it's another parameter for sizing. Like you look at reach. I think often that's what people look at. It's like top tube or reach, but stack is a useful metric because it impacts how a bike sizes to your preferences as much as those other things do. So like say a bike has a really long reach, but also has a really low stack. If you're putting, 40 mil of spacers under your stem, it might end up fitting you about the same as a smaller bike would. So just another thing to pay attention to.
And then another thing that's kind of important to differentiate here is stack versus bar height or stem height on the steer tube. Because you can have bikes with stack is measured from the position of the bottom bracket up to the top of the head tube. So if you have a bike with a really low BB offset, a high BB, and then a tall stack, you're going to have a very high center of gravity. Whereas if you have if you have a lot of BB drop and a tall stack, you're going to feel like you're really standing in the bike, which makes it very stable. But then you maybe have a less reactive bike at times, unless you're going fast. So there's pros and cons to both. But sure, like we pointed out, depends on what your objectives are there with the bike.
Yeah. I think, ultimately, like, you can always use components to change things, but sometimes it's nice to have the bike ready for you. The Dakota Norton is always the example people bring up of like using bars to affect things wildly. But if you measured from the ground, like, his bars are at the same height as other people on the World Cup. It's just that his bike has a really low stack height, so he's using bars to accommodate.
Yeah, totally.
That's all.
Cool. Well, stack solved. Next question.
Stack solved.
Hey, Pinkbike. This is Matt in Colorado. I just bought a bike park pass this summer to Snowmass in Aspen for me and my 12-year-old. And I'm trying to beef up my current bike to maybe be a little bit more cozy in the park. I've got a Norco site. It's the 2023, not the high pivot one. It's got a Lyric up front and a Super Deluxe in the back. And I'm thinking about swapping out the fork for a Zeb or another 38 mil stanchion fork. Question is that going to be noticeable in performance? Is it going to be that much more comfortable in the bike park? Or more, am I going to notice the stiffness of it? I've got another bike that I can ride trail on, so having a bike that's a little bit more parky is kind of the goal here, without going full-blown downhill bike and spending $7,000. Appreciate your thoughts. Thanks.
Well, if you can get the producer Eric discount, you can buy a used Whistler demo bike for about a quarter of that. But I don't know. I haven't ridden Snowmass Bike Park, so I don't have
There's some rough bits on there. I mean, you could, if you go with a 38 or a Zeb, it'll help. Put a 170 fork on that bike. It's a 150 rear travel, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, you could do that. But I think I would almost start with cheaper options. I would put some radial tires on there. I was thinking about this the other day on a ride, because I think of weird things on rides, but like the way that you can make the most comfortable bike, I think if you put some gravity casing radial tires on there and maybe even an O-chain, it just makes such a comfortable ride. It almost is like having more suspension travel, and you could still go pedal it when you're not in the bike park. Might probably make more of a comfort difference, I'd say, as far as getting rid of some of that chatter and the brake bumps and stuff than you would with
some like nice alloy wheels, kind of similar effect.
That's where my head was going, was the tires first, Mike. I mean, he didn't mention what he was running, but something in the DH casing, you're going to be able to run at the same or lower pressure, and get that comfort and security. And then I didn't really think of the O-chain right off the bat, but that's a good point. Another one would be the touch point, would be the grips. Having some softer grips would just add some comfort there. So a couple smaller, cheaper options to look into before upgrading the fork necessarily.
Yeah, because the fork's only, it's 10 mils more travel. It'll make a difference, but it's not really night and day. It's kind of it's still at the end of the day an all mountain kind of trail bike type of thing. You're not on a downhill bike, so there's only so much you really want to do to it before you're like, actually maybe consider a downhill bike. Like we were saying, producer Eric got his for like $2,000 US, maybe somewhere around there, $2,500. So
yeah, 2,800 Canadian.
There we go. Yeah,
good deal.
Maybe check around at the bike shops around the Snowmass area. There might be some used demo bikes, something you can kind of rally for the season and not care as much about beating it up. I know not everybody can do the two bikes thing, but it could be a good option.
Well, it sounds like he already has 2. So
oh, he has 2. Yeah, so maybe you can do 3.
Yeah.
Yes, there's room. Yeah,
you could sell your site, buy a demo bike. But no, I think tires and
start with some tires and see how that goes. And I think that maybe medium answered it. Have fun riding the park. Hopefully your kid is as good as you or better, and then you can just watch your kid rally around, which would be fun.
By the end of the season, the kid might be better. You never know.
Might be, yeah. Like if your kid gets good enough, he'll get sponsored, and you can just mooch some of his sponsorship stuff off of him. So.
Yeah, spend what you would have spent on a fork on like a nice camera setup, so you can take promotional videos of your kid sending it.
You can win some races, and then you can just get some swag that way.
Yeah.
All right. Another world problem solved. What do we have next?
Hey guys, I've got a hot topic that I think would be fun for you to discuss. I think tubeless tires are overrated. I think I've been on at least 4 or 5 rides in the last 2 years where someone has lost air or has lost too much tire pressure to ride because they either like didn't have enough sealant in their tire or they were trying to let air out and they accidentally removed the valve stem of their tubeless tires and the ride was just shot for them. I've been running tubes forever, and I've maybe gotten a few flats here and there, but it really doesn't seem worth it to me. Plus, I have a winter set of tires and a summer set of tires, so having the tubes just makes it so much cleaner and easier for me to change tires very quickly. I think I've already changed the tires, so I probably won't make the switch this summer, but maybe I will in the fall. Do you guys think it's worth it to switch over to tubeless tires? Am I going to all of a sudden start getting KOMs? What are the real advantages to riding tubeless tires? I don't live in Utah or anywhere really rocky, so I'm not worried about like big rocks or cactuses or anything like that. So why should I convert to tubeless? Good luck.
I don't know if I can for this one.
Honestly, if you don't ride like a lot, stick with tubes. They are they are easier maintenance wise in that sense, but
tubeless is so easy once you get the hang of it that it's almost
so much better.
Yeah, it's a scoop of weird milk that you put in, and once in a while it sprays all around your garage, but usually it doesn't.
Pretty rarely.
And then overall, you can just run lower tire pressures, and you don't get pinch flats as easily. And the issues he was having on the trail side, I think those might be more user error than tubeless system error. Like if someone's maybe like I know the older Lezyne pumps could unscrew the tubeless valve stem on the side of the trail, but that means you had a pump if it unscrewed. So
then you just pump back up. Yeah. I mean, shit happens for sure, but like same with tubes. I don't know. I feel like the weird little punctures that just ruin a ride that you don't foresee are like the annoyances with tubes. And like I am riding a bike with tubes right now, but
it also isn't it a 1999
it's a 1999 Kona Stab Deluxe.
Yeah, I think that's period appropriate. We didn't have tubeless until the year after that.
Yes, it is fine. And like going and riding like hard pack jump trails, it feels great. Like I have no issue with it there. But if I were to take it down like some disgusting, wet, rooty, scary thing, I would really prefer to not run 35 PSI front and rear. And then I'd be happy to be tubeless. So,
yeah. He did ask for, what are the benefits? Lower rolling weight, less chance of puncturing. Tubeless tires can reseal punctures if you do get them small enough. Occasionally.
That might be the most overhyped part of it. I think that part of the tubeless thing is kind of overhyped, but it's like only pinpricks get sealed. There are companies, even I had some silica sealant recently in one of the checkouts. It says it can seal up to a 6 millimeter hole, which is like, I doubt that. That's pretty big. But
pretty big.
Wow. Yeah, I think there have been like all the purported hole sealing benefits have been kind of toned back over the years, but like
they more just help keep it. Yeah, it helps keep air in. It's kind of the sealant's job is to kind of seal up any almost porosity in the tire itself, and then it just helps keep the air in.
Yeah, and like pinpricks, obviously it does seal well, but I don't know. I think once you're used to the system, it's really easy to change tires as well. Like, I mean, it's our job, but I change tires like every couple days a week. Like I change tires a lot. Like
a lot of my time in the garage is tire time. But it's not that bad. Every once in a while I get an annoying one, but these days they're pretty easy to set up. And even if this person was saying that they have a winter and summer tire setup, you might even be able to use the same sealant if it's still in decent shape and just scoop it from one tire into the other. And there's a little trick.
Just get a solo cup and scoop it up, put it in the next tire or a syringe, whatever. It's like
it's worth a try. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to tubes. It's not a irreversible thing. So.
But if you're happy with tubes,
yeah, you can also just keep rocking them. But
keep rocking. Yeah.
Mr. Tubes solved.
Mr. Tubes, yeah, he'd have to change
Mr.
his name,
Tubes.
so I guess he might have to stay with tubes. But yeah, we all like tubeless here, and I don't think any of us would go back to tubes on purpose. But yeah,
no.
So, all right, well, we solved all the world problems. Do you have any music corner? I feel like we haven't done music corner in
It's been a minute.
Anyone listen to anything good?
I've been listening to some good tunes. I got to give my music corner not to a newfound thing, but a shout out to Paul Wall, the rapper. What he performed at the Bentonville Bike Fest.
Really?
The YT Mill, like at their bike shop.
Oh, I didn't know that.
he had a concert, which was just like the wildest collision of worlds I've ever seen. Yeah, it was just like the crowd of Bike Fest people getting down to some Paul Wall. He seems like a real one.
Was
one
it
of
good?
the better? Yeah, honestly, he did a great job. The sound system was good. He hyped people up.
Yeah.
He's got a sick grill. So
nice.
Yeah, that's my music corner.
It's pretty good. I would go watch Paul Wall. I would. Yeah,
I had a fun time.
Yeah, nice. How about you, Matt? You anything good?
I've been listening to this like slowly released album from the New Candies. That one's pretty good.
Nice.
But I do have a bit of an oddity, which when I was in Poland, I went to this crazy Bavarian tavern style restaurant, and they had a bunch of covers with fiddles and like string instruments, but they were playing, it was like rap music. I was like, I know this tune, but there was no lyrics. It was all instrumental stuff. And I was like, I recognize this, but I couldn't place it. And then I started like Shazamming them. And so it was like Gangster's Paradise. There was like a couple Eminem ones, and there were some Dre ones. Like, this is hilarious. Who plays this kind of music?
Hell yeah.
Fiddle Gangster Paradise. Nice.
Yeah. I love that.
So it's called Bard Rock, if you want to look it up. Oh, sorry, Bardcore.
Bardcore.
Medieval Bardcore.
Even better.
Oh, nice.
So I'll pop that one in the chat.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. How about you, Eric? Let the producer chime in. What are you listening to?
Yeah, I've probably different vibe, but I've been found this new artist called Scott Nice, at least new to me, but his name's Scott Nice, and it's kind of like, the best I could describe it is like kind of like electronic music, but with like a world influence. And there's one song that I really like from him called Yee Holla. Kind of funny name, and I particularly like the album name. It's called Suns Out, Drums Out, which seems like a great vibe to me. But yeah, I've been really kind of jamming to that, and then like more of his stuff lately.
Nice. Cool.
Sick.
With mine, I feel like I was doing the radio show for a while. It's on hiatus, but doing that radio show made me have so much music. So I have music corner for days. But this one's a band called Panopticon. I think it might be a one-man band, but he makes, I don't even know how they describe it. It's like almost Appalachian hardcore metal noise, ambient.
A little bit of everything.
Like, it's a lot of stuff. But this track is Cedar Skeletons, and it's off the Rhyme of Memory. It's like a good 16-minute long song that goes some places. So we'll try to drop the YouTube link or something in the below the show.
Cedar Skeleton, that's a good name.
Yeah, and Panopticon, I always like that from anyways, Cedar Scout or Panopticon's the band. You should check that out.
Sick.
Yeah.
Should we?
That's it.
I guess that's the end.
Yeah.
We could wrap with predictions for the race tomorrow, but
oh yeah, who's gonna win? Let's see, Leo Gang, Fast. I go with Jackson again. It's a little bit bike parky up top usually, right, and then drops in a steeper bit. Is that the course?
It's like medium steep, then the long motorway, then back to steep woods. And if it rains, it gets really crazy.
Actually, I'm going to change it. Ronan, if he can keep his stuff together, Ronan's going to win because he's so angry now. And angry Ronan, if he can hold it together, he'll win. If he
got done dirty at the last round. So
yeah, well, he did. I mean, we didn't talk about this. Will be a final little bonus bit, but I can appreciate when an athlete has a mechanical and decides to say "fuck it, I hate the world" and just destroy their whole bike. And he did that. He got so mad at his wheels that he went off that drop to flat on purpose and toasted his rear wheel fully on purpose. 100%. And I can appreciate that. It's not good, but I also don't. I like it. Part of me likes that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be frustrating, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah. I mean,
Who's your pick, Matt? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Troy Brosnan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of maybe a specialist on that track.
Yeah.
But along the lines of Jackson, carry speed pretty good. It's always pumping. I think he's won. Has he won there in the past?
He might have a win. Is that one of his? Yeah. Cool.
Oh, no, maybe not. Maybe definitely podiums.
Yeah, definitely second place at some point.
Good question. I have not been keeping up to World Cup this year, so right, I'm just going to go ahead and say Jackson because he won last weekend.
Well, now you have homework. You have to follow the World Cup now.
I should because I have a fancy league with my friends, and I haven't updated it since the first round. So I should actually go look at things and update that because I'm not doing good right now.
Yeah. Yeah. For the women, I'd say Valley. That's her home race, isn't it? She's probably feeling a little frustrated.
Close. And also, I mean, there's a part of the track named after her. So, I think also she's like had kind of a rough season so far. So I would assume she's coming into that with like some fury. I think she's a safe bet. But sick to see Gracie like carry the confidence.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd like that too. Nice. Well, soon we'll know. Yeah, I'll share actually, I forgot to show this. He just woke up. So this is the the final day. If you watch the podcast all the way to this, you get a bonus.
You get a video treat, I guess.
It's a treat. All right, cool. We'll wrap it on that, and we'll catch up with everybody next week. Enjoy all the racing, and as always, don't forget to add in those questions, comments. I'll try to get to the ones that we can. Thanks for listening.